Ever feel like you're just kind of going through the motions, putting out fires left and right instead of really building a life that feels, joyful,
Right.
meaningful?
Oh, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
most people feel that way sometimes,
Well,
right? Like we're just reacting to whatever comes at us instead of consciously creating the life we want.
yeah, exactly. It's like, where's the instruction manual for this whole life thing? You
Right.
get manuals for gadgets for putting together furniture, but for actually living well, not so much.
Well, that's exactly what today's source material tries to address. This idea of intentional living, moving beyond just autopilot.
Right. And the book we're diving into today is it's called Design Your Dream Life with Forward by Kamalesh Patel.
It was just published in Ahmedabad, India back in December 2024.
Yeah, and it basically lays out this seven-step framework he calls the Anand Model. It's like a blueprint for a great life, like really joyful, contented, and meaningful, the whole package.
And I think the foreword by Rohit Wadhwana, who's, a pretty prominent diplomat in India,
Hmm.
it really gives you a good sense of Patel's background and expertise.
Right. Vadwana talks about how Patel was head of HR and chief learning officer at the Bank of Baroda.
And then he's also written a couple other books like Ordinary to Extraordinary Life and Blossoming Post-Retirement. So Patel's really got a deep well of experience when it comes to human potential and development.
So in this deep dive, we're going to go through each of those 7 steps in the Anand model, really get into the nitty-gritty of it all.
We'll be looking at the role of our thoughts, the importance of our core values, and some of the really practical strategies he offers.
Basically, our goal is to give you, our listener, the most valuable and actionable insights from this book so you can start designing your own dream life.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
So step 1 is all about getting crystal clear on what you actually want in life.
Right. Being clear about what you want. So Patel really emphasizes this idea of conscious choice. Are we actively designing the life we want, or are we just sort of letting things happen to us?
Because, if we're not intentional about it, we might end up looking back with regrets, like, oh, I wish I had.
Exactly. And Patel encourages us to really reflect on our desires in all these different areas of life. Professional achievements, obviously, but also hobbies and passions, the quality of our relationships, our health.
Our finances,
Hmm.
money and possessions, and even spiritual growth.
Yeah.
It's like creating this detailed bucket list for yourself.
Yeah, totally. And the cool thing is he gives some really specific examples in the book to kind of get you thinking. Like he talks about ultimate health.
And instead of just saying, I want to be healthy, he actually lays out these measurable criteria, like having a BMI under 25, healthy cholesterol, healthy blood sugar, optimal levels of vitamin D and B12.
Yeah, he even gets into things like waist circumference and muscle to fat ratio. It's like taking this vague idea of health and turning it into something really concrete and measurable.
Exactly,
Yeah.
making it much more tangible.
Okay, this one really blew my mind. One of the desires he lists is to live a healthy life, fully active and energetic till 130 years.
130. That's pretty ambitious.
I know, right? But he actually backs it up with research on longevity. There's this growing body of evidence that suggests our potential lifespan could be way longer than we think, like 120, 150 years even.
Wow, I had no idea.
He also talks about those blue zones around the world where people consistently live to be like 100 years old and they're still super healthy and active.
That's fascinating. It really makes you rethink our whole perception of aging.
Totally. It's like,
Yeah.
what if our current ideas about aging are actually holding us back?
Interesting.
And it gets even wilder.
Yeah.
There's another desire listed about reducing your biological age by 10 years.
Really?
Yeah, Patel talks about how there's this research showing that through lifestyle changes, you can actually reverse aging to some extent.
So it's not just about living longer, but actually being younger for longer.
Exactly. And he even mentions things like those Bluetooth-connected scales that can track your body composition and give you insights into your biological age.
Wow, technology is getting pretty sophisticated.
I know, right? It's kind of crazy. But it's cool how we can actually use technology to track and potentially improve our internal health markers.
Makes you wonder what else we'll be able to measure in the future.
Oh, definitely. Okay, there's also this aspiration to be the happiest person on earth.
That's a lofty goal.
Yeah. And he references Mathieu Ricard, the Buddhist monk who's often described as the happiest man alive.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It really broadens our understanding of what we might strive for,
Yeah.
It's not just about external achievements, but also cultivating deep inner well-being.
Right. Like, what does true happiness actually mean, and how do we actually cultivate that within ourselves?
Big questions.
Okay, so Patel also has this really practical idea about aiming for a 90% or 95% quality life.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he basically says no matter how hard you try, you're always going to miss out on something in life. There's always going to be some area where things aren't perfect.
Oh, I see.
So instead of striving for this impossible 100% perfect life, which would probably just lead to constant disappointment, he suggests aiming for a slightly lower but still high percentage.
That's really smart. It's about a more sustainable level of contentment,
Mm,
accepting that things won't always be perfect, but still striving for a really great life.
exactly. And the book lists all these other desires to get you thinking. Everything from achieving inner purity and a sense of abundance,
To experiencing positive emotions on a regular basis, embracing continuous growth.
finding joy and laughter, making a meaningful contribution to the world, practicing kindness, and even working towards freedom from ego and attachment.
That's a pretty holistic view of what we might aspire to.
Yeah, and it gets even more specific. He talks about running a marathon, learning a new language or a musical instrument, writing a book, climbing a mountain, becoming a great public speaker,
Investing photography, even progressing towards enlightenment.
which he defines as, realizing that we're not just our physical bodies or our minds, but this unchanging, witnessing consciousness. It's a really thorough exploration of all the different things we might want in life.
It really is. It gives you a lot to think about. And once you have a clearer sense of what you want, the Anand model naturally moves on to the why, reflecting on your purpose in life.
Okay, so step 2. Reflect on your purpose of life. Find out your why. Patel kicks this off with a really powerful quote from Mark Twain. The 2 most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why.
That's such a good quote. It really gets to the heart of why purpose is so important.
Right. It's like our reason for being. What's driving us? What's giving our life meaning?
And when you discover your purpose, it becomes this powerful motivator. It gives you resilience in the face of challenges and ultimately leads to a much deeper sense of fulfillment.
Totally. He also brings in the Japanese concept of ikigai, which is often described as the secret to a long and happy life.
Ikigai. Yeah, I've heard of that.
So it's basically about finding that sweet spot where 4 things intersect. What you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for.
So it's where your passions and talents align with a real need in the world.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that Patel mentions how ikigai is actually connected to traditional Japanese medicine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it highlights this belief that our mental and emotional well-being, including having a clear sense of purpose, directly impacts our physical health.
Makes sense. It's a
Yeah.
very holistic view of well-being.
Right. And then he gives a bunch of examples of purpose to kind of get us brainstorming, like striving to make a positive difference in the world, approaching our work with a spirit of service.
There's also a really thought-provoking quote from Tony DeVale about unleashing your fullest potential.
Yeah, it really encourages you to think beyond just yourself and how you can contribute to something bigger.
And then there's Sri Ravishankar's perspective, which is really interesting. He sees life's purpose as about celebrating life itself.
And also facilitating the celebration of life in others.
He connects this to cultivating qualities like love, gratitude, forgiveness, compassion, and focusing on the good in the world.
Patel also includes the idea of being a lifelong learner and sharing your knowledge with others, as well as creating a life based on pure intentions.
It's a really diverse range of examples.
Hmm.
It really gets you thinking about what truly resonates with you.
Right, like what's your unique contribution to the world? And then he ends this section with another really powerful quote, this time from Albert Einstein. Try not to be a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value.
That's a good one. It shifts the emphasis from just achieving things to actually being a good person and contributing something meaningful to the world.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leads us naturally to step 3 in the Anand model. Reflect on your core values.
All right, step 3, core values. Patel uses this really helpful analogy. He compares personal values to the core values of a business.
Like those fundamental principles that guide all their decisions and actions.
Exactly. And he explains that our personal values are like the bedrock of our identity.
They influence how we behave, how we interact with others, how we spend our money, and even the big life choices we make.
They're like our internal compass, guiding us in every direction.
And this is a really important point. Patel emphasizes that we often feel the most satisfied and content when our actions are in alignment with our values.
So taking the time to really identify and understand our core values is crucial for living authentically and understanding who we truly are at our core.
It's like when you're living in accordance with your values, you feel this sense of inner peace and rightness.
It just feels right.
Exactly. And it's interesting, he mentioned this research suggesting that we're often drawn to people who share our values.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Shared values can form a really strong foundation for any kind of relationship, whether it's personal or professional.
Yeah, you feel like you're on the same page, you're speaking the same language.
Totally. So the book actually provides a whole list of examples of personal and core values to consider.
Like humility, contribution, compassion, respect, love, courage, care, support.
Integrity, honesty, fun, having high self-esteem, self-discipline.
Adventure, boldness, dependability, gratitude, kindness, physical fitness, and even punctuality.
It's a pretty comprehensive list.
Yeah,
The key is to see which of these resonate most deeply with you.
right. Or maybe there are other values that come to mind that aren't even on this list.
It's about figuring out what your guiding principles are. What's truly important to you.
Okay, so after exploring our desired outcomes, our purpose, and our values, Patel introduces what he considers the most powerful insight in step 4.
Step 4, most powerful insight. Our ultimate search in life is for positive emotions.
And this is where he really ties everything together. He says the underlying motivation behind all of our dreams and desires is actually the pursuit of positive emotions.
So things like joy, happiness, contentment, love, inner peace, we're all ultimately seeking these positive feelings.
Exactly. It's like, why do we want to achieve things in our careers or accumulate wealth or have strong relationships or be healthy?
It's because we believe those things will bring us those positive emotions. We're chasing that good feeling.
Right. And he also points out the flip side. We naturally want to minimize negative emotions like fear, worry, anger, stress. We're wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure.
Makes sense. So Patel says the art and skill of living life is about consciously maximizing those positive emotions and minimizing the negative ones.
And he even suggests aiming for a ratio of 90% positive to 10% negative emotions for a really high quality of life.
90-10. That's a pretty good target, I think. Most of us would probably be happy with that.
Right. And that leads us right into step 5, which is all about assessing where you currently stand on that emotional spectrum.
Step 5, assessing your current life quality score.
So Patel gives us this practical self-assessment tool to figure out how much of our life is filled with positive versus negative emotions.
It's based on the idea that we can actually quantify our emotional experience.
Yeah, so it's a pretty simple ranking system. You basically rate how often you experience each of 20 different emotions on a scale of 0 to 5.
And these emotions are divided into positive and negative categories.
Right, so the positive emotions include things like happiness, joy, excitement, enthusiasm, interest, gratitude, peace, love, inspiration, contentment, fulfillment.
Feeling powerful or confident, being active and alert, all those good feelings.
And then the negative emotions are things like sadness, feeling upset, jealousy, anger, fear, stress, worry, guilt, shame.
Nervousness, depression, frustration, boredom, emptiness, all the stuff we'd rather avoid.
Exactly. So you go through and rate how often you typically feel each of those emotions, and then you calculate 2 scores.
Score A, which is the sum of all your positive emotion scores, and score B, which is the sum of all your negative emotion scores.
And Patel even has these fun terms for people based on their scores. Sukhanam, for someone whose positive score A is higher than their negative score B.
So basically a happy person, and then Dukhanam for someone whose negative score B is higher than their positive score A.
Right, so more prone to experiencing negative emotions.
I like those terms.
And then to get your overall quality of life score, you use this formula. It's your positive emotion score A plus 50 minus your negative emotion score B.
Okay, so if my positive emotion score is, say, 40, and my negative emotion score is 35.
Then your quality of life score would be 55, because it's 40 plus 50 minus 35.
Gotcha. It's a really clear way to assess your current emotional state.
And Patel makes a point of saying that this is just a starting point. Don't get discouraged by your initial score. The following steps in the Anand model are all about helping you improve and move towards that 90% life quality.
It's a journey, right?
Exactly. And he even recommends doing this assessment every month to track your progress and see where you might need to focus your efforts.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
It helps you stay aware of your emotional patterns and see how things are changing over time.
Okay, so step 6 is all about how we actually achieve that 90% life quality score we're aiming for.
Step 6, achieving 90% life quality score. Now we're getting into the practical stuff.
Right. So Patel starts off by acknowledging that life is messy. Things don't always go according to plan.
People can be unpredictable. Situations can change and problems are going to come up no matter what.
Exactly. There's a lot that's outside of our control.
But then he highlights this one crucial element that we do have some influence over: our thoughts.
He says the quality of our thoughts is the biggest factor in determining our overall life quality and the outcomes we experience.
Our inner world shapes our outer reality.
Exactly. And he quotes Albert Einstein to really drive this point home. The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking.
Wow, that's powerful.
I know, right? It really makes you realize how much power we have within our own minds.
Our thoughts are incredibly powerful.
They really are. So Patel reiterates that the quality of our thoughts is what drives those positive emotions we're all seeking.
And he even touches on the concept of the law of attraction. The idea that our thoughts can actually attract experiences into our lives.
Like if we focus on positive thoughts, we're more likely to attract positive experiences. And if we dwell on negative thoughts, well,
We tend to attract more negativity.
exactly. It's
the
all
act-
about cultivating that positive mindset.
And then Patel gets into this really interesting point about the sheer volume of thoughts we have every single day.
Yeah, he says we have somewhere between 50,000 and 70,000 thoughts per day.
50,000 to 70,000. That's mind-boggling.
I know, right? And the crazy thing is, he says 90 to 95% of those thoughts are repetitive.
So we're basically thinking the same thoughts over and over again.
Exactly. Which means if we want to change our lives, we got to change our thinking patterns.
So we got to break out of those mental ruts.
Exactly. So the question becomes, how do we cultivate more positive and constructive thoughts?
That's the million-dollar question.
Well, Patel offers several strategies. The first one is to be really mindful of our mental input.
What we're reading, what we're watching, who we're spending time with.
Yeah, it's about being selective about what we're feeding our minds. He calls it avoiding mental poison.
Like negativity and complaining.
Exactly. And instead surrounding ourselves with positive influences, like uplifting books, inspiring podcasts.
Like creating a healthy mental diet.
Totally. And then he talks about applying the observer effect to our thoughts.
The observer effect.
Yeah, so it's basically about learning to detach from our thoughts and observe them objectively, like watching clouds drift by in the sky.
So instead of getting caught up in our thoughts, we're just noticing them without judgment.
Exactly. And that creates space for us to choose how we want to respond to those thoughts instead of just reacting automatically.
It's about becoming more conscious of our thought processes.
Right. And then he talks about consciously feeding our subconscious mind with positive thoughts, affirmations, and empowering beliefs.
Like positive self-talk, basically.
Yeah. And he even mentions an annexure in the book that has a whole bunch of these resources.
So you can really immerse yourself in positivity.
Exactly. And then he talks about actively challenging those negative thoughts when they come up.
Like questioning their validity and then replacing them with more positive and empowering alternatives.
Right. It's like becoming aware of our inner critic and learning to reframe those negative messages.
It's about taking control of our self-talk.
And finally, he mentions the importance of having right intentions behind our thoughts.
So it's not just about thinking positive thoughts for the sake of it, but making sure those thoughts are aligned with our values and our purpose.
Exactly. It's about the deeper motivation behind our thinking.
It's about living with integrity.
He ends the section with a really powerful statement. As you think so, you become Phi. Quality of thoughts decides quality of life. The path to greatness starts with upgrading your thoughts.
That's a great summary. It really highlights how crucial our mindset is.
Okay, so now we get to the really practical part. Step 7. Strategies to achieve 90% quality life.
30 strategies.
I know, right? Patel gives us a whole list of actionable things we can do to improve our lives.
So these strategies are based on the 50 golden rules, which he discusses in the next chapter of the book.
But we'll get into those in another deep dive. Let's focus on these 30 strategies for now.
All right, so strategy number 1 is to start your day with prayer affirmations and gratitude practices.
He specifically recommends using that annexure with all the positive thoughts and affirmations.
It's about setting a positive tone for the day right from the moment you wake up.
Exactly. Strategy number 2 is to spend some time in nature every day.
Go for a walk, get some exercise, do some yoga and pranayama.
Pranayama is yogic breathing, by the way.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Patel really emphasizes the importance of getting sunlight and fresh air.
And he even suggests a breakdown of how much time to spend on each activity.
Yeah, like 25 minutes of walking, 25 minutes of exercise or yoga, and then 10 to 15 minutes of pranayama.
He makes the point that walking alone might not be enough for joint mobility and muscle flexibility.
Right, which is why he includes exercise and yoga, and that pranayama is crucial for optimizing lung capacity and energy levels.
It's a holistic approach to physical well-being.
Exactly. Okay, strategy number 3 is to eat a healthy breakfast.
Things like soup salad sprouts, soaked nuts, coconut curds.
It's about fueling your body with nutritious food right from the start.
And number 4 is to move more and sit less throughout the day.
Yeah, which is easier said than done sometimes, but it's so important for our health.
We got to get those bodies moving.
Okay, so for lunch and dinner, Patel's strategy is to eat healthy food 90% of the time.
He gives a big list of examples, but the main idea is to reduce processed foods, sugar, and salt.
And avoid things like cold drinks and packaged juices. He even suggests having dinner by 7 p.m. or avoiding grains after that.
It's all about eating mindfully and optimizing digestion.
Strategy number 6 is to practice mindful eating, which means eating without distractions like your phone or the TV.
Being fully present with your meal, savoring each bite.
Yeah, this can really improve digestion and help you feel more satisfied with your food.
And number 7 is to prioritize deep, restful sleep.
He suggests stretching and doing some deep breathing exercises before bed.
And ideally waking up naturally without an alarm.
Yeah, quality sleep is so crucial for both our physical and mental health.
It's when our bodies and minds recharge.
Okay, strategy number 8 is to get a comprehensive annual health checkup.
Including dental and eye exams, which a lot of people forget about.
He even recommends a bone mineral density test every 5 years, especially as we get older.
It's all about preventative care, catching potential health issues early on.
Right. And then number 9 is to take supplements if you have any deficiencies.
But always in consultation with the doctor, of course.
Exactly. Okay, strategy number 10 is to do at least one act of giving every day.
This could be something small, like smiling at someone offering them good wishes.
Mentoring a colleague, forgiving someone, or just doing something nice for someone else.
It's about cultivating generosity and connection.
Right, spreading a little bit of kindness every day.
Love that. Okay, next up we have strategies 11 and 12, which are all about continuous learning.
11 is to make a plan to read at least 100 of the best books over time and aim to read for at least 30 minutes every day.
And 12 is to listen to 1,000 of the best podcasts with a goal of listening to one per day.
It's about expanding your horizons and always learning new things.
It's never too late to become a lifelong learner.
Strategy 13 is to practice the Pareto principle, also known as the 80-20 rule.
Which is the idea that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts.
So it's about figuring out which actions are having the biggest impact and focusing on those.
Working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, number 14 is to give 100% effort to everything you do while also practicing detachment from the outcome.
So it's about focusing on the process and your best contribution rather than getting too attached to the results.
Right, because sometimes things are just outside of our control.
It's about doing your best and letting go of the rest.
Strategy 15 is to regularly appreciate others, both personally and professionally.
Let people know that you value their contributions.
It's about strengthening relationships and creating a more positive environment.
Number 16 is to build your professional network daily.
17 is to spend quality time with your family and friends every day.
And 18 is to celebrate your achievements. Acknowledge your wins and give yourself credit for your accomplishments.
Patel even suggests keeping a win diary to track your successes.
That's a cool idea. It's easy to get caught up in all the things we haven't done yet and forget to appreciate how far we've come.
Exactly. Okay, strategy 19 is to schedule nourishing activities for yourself.
Things like getting enough sleep, spending time in nature, pursuing your hobbies, listening to music.
He especially emphasizes falling in love with nature.
It's about making time for self-care and doing things that replenish your energy.
Then we have strategy 20, listening to music for at least 30 minutes every day. 21. Incorporating humor into your day. 22. Practicing daily meditation for 15 to 20 minutes.
23.
Yeah.
Dancing for at least 10 minutes every day, preferably in the evening.
24. Improving your money management skills and investing regularly, especially through SIPs and mutual funds.
All 5. Reciting mantras for 20 minutes daily.
It's a really diverse mix of strategies addressing all these different aspects of well-being.
It's like a holistic prescription for a good life.
Okay, so strategy 26 is about developing resilience and learning to bounce back from adversity.
27 is to donate 5 to 10% of your income to a good cause.
28 is to practice being kind, friendly, compassionate, loving, and appreciative.
29 is to cultivate gratitude and even keep a gratitude journal.
And finally, strategy 30 is to do that monthly life quality assessment test to track your progress.
It's a pretty comprehensive set of strategies. It covers everything from physical health to emotional well-being to finances to spirituality.
And Patel ends the section with a really important reminder. He says the focus of these strategies is on changing yourself, not the world.
So it's about taking responsibility for your own life and your own happiness.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. It's been quite a journey.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Kamlesh Patel's Design Your Dream Life and his Anand Model, I think the core message really resonates with this quote from Robin Sharma that Patel includes in the book. Living life is also a skill, and like any other skill, it requires to learn some ground rules and then practice it.
It's about being intentional and approaching life with a growth mindset. Always seeking to learn and improve.
We've gone through this whole 7-step journey, starting with clarifying our desires and our life's purpose.
Then reflecting on our core values, understanding the importance of positive emotions, assessing our current life quality.
Focusing on the power of our thoughts, and then finally putting those 30 practical strategies into action.
It's a blueprint for a truly fulfilling life.
And I think the biggest takeaways are that our thoughts have a huge impact on our experience of reality and our emotions.
That our values and our purpose are like our guiding stars.
And that there are concrete things we can do every day to improve our lives and move towards a higher level of joy and contentment.
It's empowering to realize that we have so much more control over our lives than we often think.
So now we want to turn it over to you, our listener. What aspects of the Anand model resonated most with you?
Which of the 7 steps or the 30 strategies really stood out to you?
And what small action can you commit to taking today to start designing your own dream life?
If you're feeling inspired to explore these concepts further, we highly recommend checking out Patel's book, Design Your Dream Life.
It's got those 50 golden rules we mentioned and a really extensive annexure filled with positive thoughts and affirmations.
It's a great resource for anyone who's serious about creating a life they love.
So as you reflect on all this, maybe the most crucial element in designing your dream life isn't just having a blueprint, but actually putting those principles into practice.
And consistently nurturing the inner landscape of our minds.
What will you choose to nourish within yourself today?
That's a great question to ponder.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.